Shalom Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews, you know, we Hebrews got ancient enemies. Our ancient enemies are still here today. Our ancient enemies are feasting on us in this captivity. And our ancient enemies have been given new names. New names because the people that we abandon our heritage to are in control of the Western language and its written history. We got ancient enemies that's here terrorizing the Israelites under new names. And our problems go back to the biblical days. Us Hebrews that's suffering in this captivity. Some of the peoples that call themselves blacks and African Americans, they don't think that they're in captivity, and they think that they free, and everything is just sweet as apple pie. And we are being terrorized and destroyed by an ancient enemy under the disguise that we are all friends and that we are all cool. But we Israelites are being systematically destroyed, and how the Negroes, the blacks, and the African Americans, the Hebrews that function up under those titles don't know what's going on, and they are the main reason why we are being destroyed and oppressed right now. We can come together as Hebrew Israelites and we can resist this oppression. And we have to do this by identifying our true enemies. That's like, since our ancestors been here in captivity, and I got countless videos explaining how all Africans were not taken from Africa. All Africans wasn't taken from Africa to the transatlantic slave trade. You ain't have no barbers, you ain't have no Ethiopians, you ain't have no Egyptians, you ain't have no pygmies, no Tutsis. Man, it's a whole host of Africans that never made it to the transatlantic slave trade. And we Hebrews here that's in captivity, we living in a delusion to where we think that everybody is our friends because they got pigmentation, and how everything is cool and sweet. Hebrews are suffering from a what they call Stockholm syndrome, where you start identifying with your oppressor, and start doing the things that your oppressor want you to do. And our oppressor want us to stay dumb and ignorant to the fact that we are Israelites. And if we identify ourselves as Israelites, then we can identify our ancient enemies, who are the people that are oppressing us here today. And oh man, it's awful. But King David kind of laid out, our enemy structure, which we know who our enemies were when we left Egypt, during Exodus time, and how we got into the promised land. I'm sure everybody is familiar with biblical history and understand the story, the history of the Tanakh, and how it, explained the Israelites' enemy and so forth. All right, Hebrews, what I want to explain is that our enemies got new names today. And the people who gave them the new names are the people that we abandon our heritage to. And it's like, we are immune to our enemies destroying us and treating us wrong because we can't identify the people as enemies and so forth. And that's why come we can't move forward, because we think everybody on planet Earth is okay with us. And if you look at history in the position that we been in, we don't have no friends. We don't have no friends or no ethnic group that say, hey, redeem them, and they been done wrong over there in the Western Hemisphere from the transatlantic slave trade to now. We don't have nobody backing us and say, hey, man, these people need to be done better than this, and how the Western society then just dog them out, the so-called Negroes, the African Americans. We don't have China, Russia, Iran, India, or these nations in the East, fighting for us and, trying to help us get free from this system that, our ancestors been subjected to for 400 years. We do need some help, and we do need sovereignty. We need sovereignty over ourselves, and we ain't been able to get no sovereignty over ourselves, as I'm sure that all people, been viewing the social media and the news, how, we've been capturing the government through the police agencies, oppressing us and dogging us out and killing us and taking us out, which they've been doing it for a long time. It's just now that, we able to get, pictures and record this because of the technology of today. But in the past, man, they was killing thousands of us, man. Every day, the police, would, take somebody out. And that's been going on since our ancestors been here in the Western Hemisphere, from the transatlantic slave trade. But what we Israelites need to do is, some of us got a sense of who our enemies is, but some of the Hebrews are living in a delusion, and they, setting us up for disaster again, because these Hebrews then included people into the Israelite heritage that don't go there and that have a connection to our direct enemies. And it's awful. It's a lot going on in the Israelite community with the Hebrews being blind and don't know who the enemy is, and how we think that everything is just sweet as apple pie, and how we just going on in life, and man, we need to identify our enemies and get an understanding of who these peoples is, because as I can show in Tanakh history, that the majority of our enemies are tainted with the fallen angelic beings, and they would go back to a scene of what the Creator told that beast, that reptile in the garden, about how that he would bruise our head and we would bruise his heel, which would make him fall. And we know that a snake ain't got no heel and so forth to fall, and that was a metaphor, and that the Creator was speaking to a human. Like, in Tanakh history, we can show that the angelic beings, was just like humans and looked at like humans, as the angels were with the Creator when they was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, which was an Amorite holding that was mixed up with the Nephilims and the Raphilims, the terrible ones. Those are the fallen angelic beings, and they ancestors gonna go back to Cain seed mixing with the angelic, the fallen angelic beings, the Nephilims. And I got a video covering that and how they lived underground in Turkey and so forth, and how their descendants will be the Hittites, the no pigmented peoples. You see, we've been having trouble with no pigmented peoples, man. I'm talking about for a long time. We've been having trouble with no pigmented peoples, and man, it's been a war. And since we Israelites have been in captivity, to these people, man, I'm talking about, you see how the way that they treat us, and that they treat a dog better than they do the transatlantic slave trade people. You ain't never seen them tying no dog up on by the neck and hanging him on a tree I ain't never seen a dog hanging from a tree with a rope because some non-pigmented peoples didn't like him. I ain't never seen that. But let's get into some of our, enemies. But then too, we got to understand that the reason that we are going through these harsh conditions is because our ancestors broke the covenant in the book of Jeremiah during the Babylonian wars, and the Creator called from the people from the north. Called for the people from the north. He called for the people from the north, and all this is north of us, and all those people came down and settled in our land, and when we run off into Africa, then they would go to other parts and then circle back and get us, and then bring us over to the Americas, and man, we've been suffering ever since, just like the curses calls for. But this is what I want to show to some of our enemies, that even King David outlined that these people were our enemies. And then I could show in Tanakh history that how our first enemies would be the Edomite tribes. The Edomite tribes, we hadn't even got to the Kenite tribes. And this is another thing, is that the Edomites mixed in with the Kenite tribes. So us Israelites going in to destroy the Kenites from exiting Egypt, man, the Edomites would be aligned with them, and then the Edomites had mixed in with the Nephilims and the Raphalims through the Horites and so forth. They was already mixed in with the Amorites, and how the Amorites held control of Moab and Ammon, and how the Amorites were mixed in with the Nephilims, and how all them kind of became one. And that's where your term Semitic come from. Semi, mixed, half and half. Half of all the ancient tribes, the Semitic people, are the people that basically, our enemies, and the people that, the Creator told us to destroy in the promised land, because, all our enemies can be identified, up under the Semitic term and so forth. And that's like, the Amorites, gonna mix with them Hittites and them fallen angelic beings, and that's gonna create, the Semitic peoples. All right, let's look at this here. All right, this is what King David says. Well, this is a song of asphalt. Let me see. Keep not thou silence, O Yah, hold not. This is Psalms 83. Keep not thou silence, O Yah, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yah. For lo, then enemies make a atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. And they show nothing and lifted up our head. Got us all messed up in this captivity, where the Hebrews don't know right from left, and how we think that everybody is cool with us. And then you got Hebrews that's promoting this 10 lost tribe doctrine, saying that the Hispanics and the natives and so forth that are not mixed with the transatlantic slave trade people are Israelites. Man, confusing the whole Israelite movement. Got all kind of Hebrews believing in that mess, man. I'm talking about Hebrews are believing all kind of doctrines, man. If it sound good and it look peaceful and sweet, they gonna dive into it. And that's the way it's been, and that's false. Teaching that them natives and the Hispanics that never come from the transatlantic slave trade, saying that they are Hebrews, is false. And I can show that the Sephardim and that the Sephardites were crypto Jews, the Marinos, who came to the Western Hemisphere, and then made it, come from Spain, came from Spain and Portugal, chased out of Europe by Ashkenazi through the Catholic Church, made some of them, force converted those Morenos, and then them will be the ones that the Hebrews will see, because they got pigmentation, that the Hebrews will say Those are us. That's us in Spain, and how we ruled everywhere. Not knowing that them folks are the Sephardi Jews that left the Edomites, that had left the promised land in 70 AD, and they always through their merchant trade organizations, the Sephardi's always had an association with Spain and so forth, and how that the Phoenicians did trade all in the Mediterranean area, and how the Amorites would be hooked up with them, and then how that they would do trade in other lands and so forth. But how Hebrews will say that the Morenos from from Spain and Portugal saying that's us, we black and we ruled all over Europe, and then saying that them folks went over to the Americas and so forth, and that's where we went, and that's how them tribes, me and them folks, me and them camps are pure crazy, and half of the camp organization leaders gonna be undercover Masons, and they gonna be controlled by the Illuminatis. I'm here to tell you, I done looked into the Illuminatis world, and if any Israelite is associated with the Masonic lodges, oh man, he caught up and he don't know what's going on. Especially if he in a leadership position, you better watch out for him. You better watch out for him. You Hebrews better check and see if your leaders in these Masonic organizations are hooked up with these Greek Alpha Phi organizations and so forth, because they all controlled by the Illuminatis and so forth. All right, but how the Hebrews would, matter like I got a map, man, a map, man, that camp stuff that 10 Lost tried, you know what I'm saying? That junk is crazy. Saying that Hebrews are the Indians and North American Indians and all this old mad stuff. Now, if the people done mix with the Hebrews, if the people done mix with the Hebrews since the transatlantic slave trade, then they got a claim to be Israelites. But if they ain't mixed with us, then they can't be no Israelites, because I proved that all the Hebrews ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, and that how we didn't come to the Americas with no cattle, no horses, and I show in the other videos that how we built houses, had windows, and had carts and chariots and so forth. And this is that killer right here that kills that 10 Lost tribe mess in the Americas, is that the Hebrews would have had an axle, when we had an understanding of how a wheel function, and a wheel cannot function without an axle. You got to have an axle. And how that it wasn't no axles, and it wasn't no golden calf worship in the Americas. You can't find the natives smelting no metals or digging for no stones as we did in Tanakh history, how we had precious stones in breastplates that was smelted and crafted with gold and so forth, with different kind of mineral stones, jasper, sardis, quartz, and diamonds, and rubies, and everything. And how did the natives ain't have none of that? And how did we lived in houses that had 2-story buildings, and how we made bricks in Egypt was a part of our custom, was making bricks in Egypt. We made bricks in Egypt, and we had houses. Man, I'm talking about, man, we had houses to live in, and then how that we wouldn't come to the Americas and living on animal skins and so forth, and how we had houses and so forth. Look at that Hebrew right there laying that brick. You see what I'm saying? For his houses, and how throughout the whole Tanakh history it talk about us dwelling in houses and having carts and chariots and domesticated animals. Ain't no way in the world that we would have come to America and not domesticated none of the animals, and how that you couldn't have came to the Americas from the East without some type of stock and supply and so forth, and how we had domesticated animals and everything, and how that we wouldn't have came to the Americas and then didn't do none of our Hebrew functionings and traits and so forth, and how I show in plenty videos how it never was any 10 lost tribes. So these camps teaching lies, and they bringing you to the enemies unknowingly. They bringing you to the enemies unknowingly, because I can show that the Hispanics gonna come from the Jews, the Ladino, the Judeo-Spanish, gonna come from the Judeo-Spanish, gonna come from the Sephardic, the Sephardics, and how did they left Spain, Portugal, with the Romanist languages in their control, and how they had the Romanist language under their control. That's where the vulgar Latin come from, that old Roman language, and how did they come over here with the Latin, and then Ashkenazi come over with the English, and how did they would develop a whole new history for the meaning of words, and how that our enemies' history and names was lost during that process, because the people who we abandoned our heritage to covered up the back end, covered up the history of the enemies that the Israelites were, enemies forever, what I'm saying, with, and how that the people we abandon our heritage to is part of them, and then how that they switched all their names around in the Tanakh, and how that these people is among us today, and we Hebrews don't even have a clue what's going on, and how we just living in a dream world. But that's like, say for instance, if we woke up to that the so-called Arabs are part of the Horite, Edomite, Amorite family groups, in that how that they in the community and we enriching them, and they ain't put nothing back in the community, and how they our enemies, and how we would possibly wake up and try to find a way to stop that, stop enriching them folks in them corner stores and so forth. I know it's hard because we ain't got nowhere else to take our money to. It's rough, but look, them Hebrews that be saying that the Hispanics and so forth and the natives Israelites, they don't know no real history, and they don't know that the Sephardi Jews, the Sephardims, left the Mediterranean area chased by the Romans, and then went to Spain, Portugal, and then from there, from Spain and Portugal, they would, go on to the Western world, South America, and set it up, and in North America, and then it's like this. Look, the history of the Jews in Mexico can be said to have began in 1519 with the arrival of the conversos. A converso is a convert, was a Jew who converted to Catholicism in Spain or Portugal, particularly during the 14th and 15th century. So all those folks that come over here with the Catholic Church and so forth, that was forced, them Jews, they come over here and set it up. And then, that how the Christian organizations got a foothold. Look, all right, the history of the Jews in Mexico can be said to have began in 1519. That's 100 years before the 1619 deal with us being kidnapped and taken to all over, with the arrival of the conversos, often called Morenos or crypto Jews. Crypto Jews. referring to those Jews forcibly converted to Catholicism and that then became the subject to the Spanish Inquisition because they had knowledge or skills in medical profession, and they was bringing them to the new colonies, which they came because they controlled and owned the slave ships and financed it. Over the colonial period from 1521 to 1821, a number came to Mexico, especially during the period of the Iberian Union, 1580 to 1640. The whole Mexican race, the whole Hispanic race come off the Jews, the Sephardims, and people don't understand this. So these Hebrews saying that these Hispanics tribes are the tribes of Israel, it is teaching you lies and then taking you to the enemies and so forth. They're taking you to the enemies because the Sephardi Jews, the Sephardims, control the whole Hispanic race. They created the whole Mexican race from the conquistadors mating with the natives and so forth. So, that's a lie. And they bringing you to the enemies right there. All right, look at this here. Let's see what some more it say. All right. Then political circumstances allow free movement by Portuguese crypto-Jewish merchants into Spanish America. When the Portuguese won their independence from Spain in 1640, Portuguese merchants in New Spain were prosecuted by the Mexicans, and when the monopoly of the Roman Catholic Church was placed with the religious. Yes, see, but the thing is that the Mexicans, look, today most Jews in Mexico are descendant of this immigration and still divided by diaspora. Yeah, this, all right. So, but that the Jews from Spain took Latin over into the Americas, and then they developed Latin. The English language gonna come off the a mixture of Latin, the vulgar Latin, and the English that come from the Ashkenazi. What they try to say Germany, but we know, the Ashkenazi, was in the promised land and got in the promised land and been educated before they came to the promised land, when they was in Babylon under the name Chaldean. And then how when they come to the promised land and then, got some more education, and then how they come to the new world, they went back to their ancient homelands, men around the Black Sea and all the way over into Europe, and how Germany is an Ashkenazi ancient homeland, and how the English come from the German language, and that's gonna be from them, and then they gonna come over to the Americas, and then they gonna develop books, and then that's gonna hide our ancient enemies' names and so forth. All right, let's look at some of our ancient enemies, and let's get an understanding of who is our enemies. Like I was reading, Psalms 83. Keep not thy silence, O Yah, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yah, for lo, thine enemies make a torment, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They take crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Us just being hidden from the world as Israelites, and our enemies been having the power to do that, to hide the true Israelites' heritage and who they are. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacle of Edom. Look, the tabernacle of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gabal, that's the Gabal, folks, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines, and the inhabitants of Tri, Usher, but we had some other enemies, man, before then, the Egyptians were our enemies, the Egyptians were our enemies, all the Canaanite tribes were our enemies, supposed to be our enemies, since we were supposed to take our land, take their land from them. All right, let me show you Hebrews this, or how that our first enemies who we gonna have contact with, you know what I'm saying, gonna be the Amalekites, and the Amalekites gonna be the Amalekites gonna be a descendant of that they gonna be a descendant of Edom. You know, the Amalekites gonna be a descendant of Edom, and man, them they gonna be mixed with the Horites, and the Horites gonna be mixed with them Raphalims and Nephilims. That's gonna be the fallen angelic beings. You might as well just call them Cain seed, because Cain will mix up with them, and then they will be the byproduct, and the Hittites will be that byproduct too. But if we go to Exodus 17, Exodus 17 is when we first come out of Egypt. When we first come out of Egypt, you know, we know the Egyptians are our number one enemies. The Egyptian culture is our number one enemy, because that's what we Hebrews broke the covenant following and associating with the Egyptian religion. But besides that, the Edomite tribes are our enemies, and then the Japhet tribes will be our enemies too, because Prophet Noah was real smart when he said that Japhet would dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan, the Canaanites would be his servants. Then where is Shem for Japhet to be allowed to dwell in his tent and his inheritance? And I'm sure Shem wouldn't allow that and wouldn't be up with that. And Shem descendants gonna translate into Abraham's son Isaac descendants through Jacob, Israel. You know, that's gonna be the lineage. You know, the Shem lineage gonna go through them. All other Shem descendants would be lost and mixed off and swept away, like the Edomites were absorbed into the Amorite tribes and the Nephilims, and you know, so forth. All right, our first enemy, man, when we come out of Egypt, man, is gonna be the Amalekites, and the Amalekites were associated with them, with the Raphalims and Nephilims, the giants and so forth, the terrible ones. All right. When you get to Exodus 17, this is us leaving Egypt. We done left Egypt, and you know, when Sinai part, and then come to find out, this is where your boy Amalek, you know, stayed at. You know, look at this here. You see this here map. Now, you see this? All right, you see that's what Amalek at, and Edom. All right, that's gonna be them, and that's the Ishmaelites, and that's the Hagarites, so forth, and they go to Amorites. All these will be our enemies. The Gomer, Japhet descendants, you know, that went all across northern parts of Mesopotamia through Turkey all the way up to Europe and so forth, and how them would be our enemies. But you see how Amalek was right there, and just what the scriptures say, you know, he was when we come out of Egypt, and how they're gonna be the first group that attacked us, and then they attacked the weak Israelites that was weak and famished and hungry and weak from leaving Egypt, and then how that the Amalekites, who are Edomites, man, attacked us. So that's like Edom attacking us, and then we have to remember that Edom was mixed in with the Kenite tribe. So Edom is gonna be against us Israelites coming out of Egypt, going in to take the promised land, because you know he was mixed up with them Kenite tribes. That'd be taking some of his in-laws land and so forth. And I can show that Edom was cool with them and was always an adversary to us Israelites, as the Creator had told Prophet Obadiah around about 853 BC, or how the Edom would get in our land and take our heritage over, and man, it come to pass. And then I want to show you Hebrews something, man. Man, if I can get down to this part, I'm gonna cover some of this, but how John Heinekes converted the Edomite tribes to what they call Judaism, and how Teman is Yemen. Yes, old Teman right there. That's Yemen. That's Eliphaz's son, and Omar is Omen. And how did that that they had a strong Jewish population that went over into Africa and so forth, but how that they was converted uh, uh, by this dude named John Harnicus, Amorite Maccabee. All right, so we see that the Amalek gonna be the first people that attacked us when we come out of Egypt. You know, Exodus 17:9, and Moses said unto Joshua, choose out men and go fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod and see. So, Moses held up his hands, and the Lord said unto Moses, write this in a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nasi. For he said, because the Elohim had sworn that the Elohim would have war with Amalek from generation to generation. All right, so the Amalekites, gonna be the first people to attack us, the Edomites. And then look, let's go look and see that Eliphaz is his father. Eliphaz is Amalek's father. And then as we, I'm gonna show this again too. All right, this is Deuteronomy 25:17. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way and smote the hindermost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou was faint and weary, and he feared not Yah. See, so the Amalekites didn't fear Almighty Yah. Edom descendants don't fear Almighty Yah. That's why come they was easily to convert over into a religion that don't have Almighty Yah included in it. All right. How he met thee with by the way and smote the hindermost part of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou was faint and weary, and he feared not Yah. Therefore it shall be when the Elohim thy Yah hath given thee rest from all thine enemies. Look, you see, from all thine enemies round about in the land which the Elohim thy Yah giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it. And we never did get a chance to block the Amalekites off and up under heaven, because we Israelites, King David put the sword to him. King Saul put the sword to him. King David put the sword to him. After that, it was downhill. That we didn't put nobody else lights out, and how that we was tricked out the promised land, and then how our enemies were left, in the land, and then how that they are here today in our communities under different names. All right, so we see we were supposed to put the Amalek lights out because of what they did, because they are an eternal enemy. So the Amalekites gonna be them Arab tribes today. All right, now let's go to Genesis 36. Genesis 36 will show you that Amalek mama was Timnah, the son of Hur, and then in the Tanakh when it say that Sir was destroyed, and Edom was put And instead, where them Edomites absorbed those those Horites in the people of Sir, because Hor was a son of Sir. All right, that'd be Genesis 36, I think. Let's see, Genesis 36. Genesis 36. All right, Genesis 36 shows Edom's lineage. Look, we see Edom. Edom took the wives. This Genesis 36. Edom took the wives of the daughters of Canaan. So Edom gonna be against us. You know, and Adar, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Adonai, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zebon the Hivite, and Ishmaelite's daughter also. And I can show that Ishmael lived in Paran, and how the Edomites and the Horites went to Paran, and how that the Edomites were given a heritage in Egypt, and how he went to Paran and grabbed some Ishmaelites, and how that the Ishmaelites will be tied into the Raphalims and Nephilims also. All right, so we see that Edom, had, the Ishmaelite kids and so forth, and he had Kenite kids. All right, and then they go down to some of Ishmael, Esau kids, Edom kids. This dwell Edom in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adar, the wife of Esau; Reuel, the son of Bishma, the wife of Esau; and the sons of Eliphaz were Teman. Look, you see Teman, that's Yemen. You see Omar, that's Oman. All right, and Kenneth and Timna was the concubine to Eliphaz. Look, you see how Timon was the concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. Look, you see Amalek name right there, and these are the sons of Adar. All right, now as you get over here and get to Genesis 36, and then you get down to let's say 21. And Dashon, Ezer, and Dishon, these are the dukes of the Horites, the children of Sir in the land of Edom. And the children of Lotan were Hori and Herman, and Lotan's sister was Teman. See, Teman is gonna be that same Teman brawl that Eliphaz mixed with, that had the son Amalek. And we know that the Horites gonna be the offshoots and mixed up with them giants and so forth. And you can go to Genesis 14. Let's see what Genesis 14 say. All right, Genesis 14. Genesis 14. All right, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood showing and tracing our enemies in biblical times. And I'm going to try to bring them up to date. All right, look, you see Genesis 14. In the 14th year came this Genesis 14:5. All right, well, then I read, what happened is that, some Middle Eastern folks, from around Iran and, them parts came, they had pigmentation. They come off of like an Indian-like stock. And then how they had came down to Sodom and Gomorrah, the Amorite holding and robbed them. And then took some of them, and how Prophet Abraham, our father, was dwelling in the land at that time, and how he got his household together and went and rescued everybody, and then he come back, and then he gave everybody back their goods and stuff, and then that was like his little way of getting in the promised land, because he like saved them little Amorites holdings and so forth, they little stuff that they had that was took from them. And then, that would allow him to live there in peace for a little while. And then how that, we was promised that land, and then how that we didn't start to get the land until after we came out of Egypt. All right, this is 14. This showing that the Amalek gonna have that Horite connection that's gonna be connected to the Rephaims and Nephilims. All right, and it come to pass in the days of Armphel, king of Shinar, Arech, king of Elasar, and Chalmar, king of Elam, and Til, king of nations, that these made war with Buri, king of Sodom, and with Bishop, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Adam, and Shemember, king of Zobium, and the king of Bela, which is Zor, and all these were joined together in the vale of Sedum, which is the salt sea. In 12 years they served Chaldonians, and in the 13th year they rebelled, and in the 14th year came Chaldonians and the kings that were with him, and smote the Raphaims and Ashtaroth and Kernam and the Zuzims and Ham. Them gonna be the fallen angelic beings in those nations, in the Emims, in Shiv, in Kethra, in the Horites, in the Mount Sur, unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And then look here, you see that El Paran, that's Paran, that's gonna be where Ishmael kicked it at. So we know if the giants and the fallen angelic beings is kicking it in Paran, then Ishmael gonna go stay there. And then if Ishmael gonna stay there, then you know what I'm saying, you know he gonna probably get contaminated with them, and then them gonna be the non-pigmented peoples, and that's why Ishmael descendants will have no pigmentation, as well as Edom descendants wouldn't have no pigmentation, because they mix with the no pigmented peoples like the Canaanites and the Hittites. All right, look, you see what it say right there. All right, let's go to Genesis 21. Let's make a connection with Ishmael to these folks real quick. All right, we go to Genesis 21. Genesis 21. And we see that prophet Abraham, told, the concubine and the little child that he had by her that they had to go, because how Isaac would inherit everything and so forth. And then how they took off. And then, the Creator was with him. And if you get to Genesis 21 and then you get to 20, and you see that the Creator was, Yah was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. So you know what I'm saying, he gonna be delivered, staying in Paran and stuff, and then them folks would eventually get to them, as the Edomites and so forth took Egypt over. But then if you go to First Kings, First Kings, First Kings 11:18, and this will show Edom running there to be with Ishmael, and then I can show that where I just did that how that Paran was where them fallen angelic beings was at too. All right, if you go to First Kings 11, and now this why the Edomites have control. Now these are our enemies. This is why the Edomites have control over Egypt right now today, is because that Pharaoh gave Egypt. It's like he passed the wicked baton over to the Edomites, and that the Edomites had got an inheritance in Egypt. If you go to that'd be First Kings. Let me see. First Kings. No, that's not. All right. First Kings 11:18. 11:18. All right. This is Hadad, a Edomite prince that King David didn't destroy it. Took off and went to Egypt, and then how he came back out when wicked Solomon got on the throne and stuff. But how he had went to Egypt. This Hadad, this Edomite prince, fleeing from King David, and then how the Pharaoh gave him some land and so forth. But how he had went to Paran too, and then that's where Edomite, I mean the Ishmaelite holdings was, as well as the Nephilims. Look, the Rephaims. And the Elohim stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad, that the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it come to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab the captain of the host was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom, the ones that'll fight and probably try to resist. That Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servant with him to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. And they arose out of Medin and came to Parain. Look, you see Parain? And they took men with them out of Parain, and they come to Egypt unto Pharaoh. So them gonna be some Ishmael folks mixed with them angelic, them Raphaims and so forth, the terrible ones. All them gonna be mixed up in that Parain. Look, and they arose out of Medin and came to Parain, and they took men with them out of Parain, and they come to Egypt unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which gave him an house and appointed him victuals and gave him land. See, Pharaoh gave him land. Pharaoh gave a Edomite land in Egypt, and that would be the reason why all them Edomites control Egypt right now today. The Edomites control Egypt. All right, so we see how Eliphaz's son Amalek was the first of fathers, and then how that the Canaanite tribes would be mixed up with them Edomites too, as I showed, and then also how that our mother and father was grieved by old Edom messing with them, going into them Hittite tribes. Going into the Hittite tribes. Edom went into the Hittite tribes too, and that would grieve our mother and father, Isaac and Rebekah. They didn't like Edom going into them Hittite tribes. Alright. That would be, let's see what it said. I'm going to have to come back to that. Yeah, all our enemies, man, today got new names, because when the Jews come over and went to Spain with the Romanist language, and then went to the New World and then developed English, and then that changed our enemy names and so forth. So our enemies are able to come around us, and we ain't able to identify them, because we don't know. The Israelite Brotherhood can identify them. All right. All right. If you go to Genesis 26, and then you get down to 34. And Esau was 40 years old when he took to wife Judah, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Bishma, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which were a grief of mine unto Isaac and to Rebekah. Because they son and took on them the enemies of Israel, and then how that we can't inherit the promised land up under Edom, because Edom was mixed in with them Canaanite tribes. And the reason that we were supposed to displace the Canaanite tribes in that Amorite system is because that Amorite system with capitalism, man, it don't show no love. It create the homeless, it create death and destruction, and it's no human unity and compassion with the system that our enemies now set up. You see, so the Creator sent us in to destroy that system, and that system went from Egypt all the way to Mesopotamia, and how our whole goal was to destroy the evil, wicked system that the Amorites had set up, and them people would become our enemies. basically everybody are the Israelites' enemies, because if you look at the way that the world is today, ain't nobody for us. Ain't nobody for us, and basically all our enemies function the same. They all in unity when it come to destroying us. But how we Israelites, our ancient enemies are the tribes in the past that have new names today. It's like, them Arabs. Man, them Arabs, they are Edomites, Amalekites, Moabites. And we know Jordan, it is the land of Ammon, and Ammon is even a capital there. And how that all those peoples, uh, man, from here, that's Yemen, that's Eliphaz descendants, and how all those peoples from here is our enemies, and then how all the peoples from here, Japhet descendants, is our enemies. Because remember, Prophet Noah said that Japhet descendants will be living in Shem house. That's gonna make us an enemy, because why is Japhet descendants living in Shem house? Man, unless something happened to Shem's descendants. And if you go to Genesis 9, and then you get to verse 27, and it says, Yah shall enlarge Japhet, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now Canaan showed enough the servant of the Sephardi Jews. I just did a paper showing how that Ashkenazi, took over the Sephardi way and so forth. And then, these are the people we would abandon our heritage to, that would set up these systems. And you see, Ashkenazi, Scythians, those are the people that the Creator called from the north, when he called all the families of the north. So all them folks gonna be our enemies. And then we know that the Canaanite tribes that we didn't destroy were our enemies. And then Edom mixed in with all those other nations and peoples that will make them our enemies and so forth. So we ain't got no friends. We Israelites ain't got no friends. That's just all it boils down to. We ain't got no friends. Alright, now let's look up here. Let's see what we gonna show, man, about how all these folks is against us. Because if we supposed to be the Creator's chosen people with a covenant, then it's gonna make all them people be against us, because those people got a system set up and they don't want their system disturbed, and they are functioning well in the system that they have set up today, and we are not. We are at a disadvantage in the system that they control today. And that go to show you that they are our enemies, because if we ain't prospering in the system that they got set up as a whole, then something ain't right. Something ain't right. And then what ain't right is that our enemies got up all kind of administrative structures to destroy us with, and how that they know how to, set structures up to where we don't have no advantage in it. Man, it's rough. Us Israelites, we don't have no friends. And for you Hebrews thinking that we all these different ethnic groups and thinking that all these people are us, you ain't doing nothing but prolonging our suffering, because those ethnic groups, the natives and all the people that are not mixed with the transatlantic slave trade descendants, are not Israelites, and those people's gonna be connected to our enemies and so forth. Those are just facts. Those are just facts, man. We're gonna have to wake up. Those are facts. Those are facts. All right, Hebrews, I wanna get some more history, and I wanna talk about, our enemies, son, and how that they been pulling a fast one in history, and how that the whole world. See, it's another thing that'll make the people in the world be against us, is because in a deep subconscious mind, they know that the people that are claiming the Israelite heritage that are non-pigmented are not Israelites, and that they've been living a glory life based upon that lie, because they think that they are the reflection of the Creator when they are not. And I've proven over and over in countless videos how we Israelites abandon our heritage to some Babylonian scribes, and how those Babylonian scribes had thousands of years of civilization before we was even the Israelite nation, and how they developed words and meanings of words and so forth, and how that we would abandon our heritage to the people set in Samaria called the Sephardims, who ain't nothing but Amorites, and how that we abandon our heritage to them, and then how that they would set the system up that we have today that's called Western culture, that we Israelites are at a disadvantage in, because our enemies controlled it. All right, now we know that that the that the Amalekites and the Canaanites were our tribe, and then and that Japhet descendants were our enemies. Then it's basically everybody. That's basically everybody, and then showing how our enemies are connected to the people that the Israelites are confused about their heritage. There's all kind of stuff going on. All right, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood, and let me show this real quick. This is Jeremiah. This is before we was kicked out the land, and chased into the bondage that we in now. This is Jeremiah 1. Then said the Elohim, Jeremiah 1:14. Then said the Elohim unto me, out of the north, and evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, said the Elohim, and they shall come, and they shall set everyone his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah. And then all the people from the north is going to be all these folks up here. All these folks up here. I already showed everybody how the Japhet descendants got in through Ashkenazi, through these parts, and how all these peoples were our enemies and so forth. All the peoples from the north, and how that they came down and chased us into Africa, and how all those peoples will be our enemies right now today. Will be our enemies right now today. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. We got to wake up and realize that we don't have no friends, and that that's like even the Negroes and the blacks are not the Hebrew Israelite friends, because they don't know their heritage, and how that they are a danger to us, and how that we have to band together, us Hebrew Israelites, and pray to the Creator. Shalom. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood, the King.